Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. So tonight I'm really pleased to have Jordan Reed with me. Hi Jordan,
Hi,
how are
Pauline.
you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine too, thank you. We are really exciting to have you, especially because we just released your signature mouthpiece, and it's a classical mouthpiece, so it's kind of a first for us. So tonight, yeah, we will talk more about classical music, and it's nice to explore new music and new styles. So I'm
Yeah,
really
I
happy.
I agree, and I want to thank you and everybody at Syos for taking a chance and trying to make a classical mouthpiece because I feel like that market is it's pretty tough to compete in that sort of a market. So thank you very much for taking a chance and a gamble on me and classical playing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for trusting us. It's since it was a first, it's always nice to have a great musician to work with. So I have a few questions for you, and then you will do your masterclass about like practicing and especially practicing altissimo. So please stay to learn a lot about that. And so I have a few. Yeah, I have a few question. If you have question, you can also ask them on the comments in Facebook or YouTube, and we will Jordan will answer all the question at the end after the masterclass. So Jordan, you are a classical player who also experiments with electronic music with your duo MEMS. So do you feel like modern music and saxophone synergize well?
I think they synergize extremely well. Um, at a lot of conferences, especially the NASA conferences or the conferences for super nerdy saxophones, there's a lot of new music being written. I mean, they're almost exclusively brand new music. But specifically with MEMS, because in the type of new music you're going to hear at these conferences, there's a lot of multiphonics and a lot of experimentation, and a lot of saxophonists refer to it at times as getting like NASA brain or NASA ears, where you need to like take a break for a minute. But outside of the classical world, in new music in general, saxophone and new music, whether it's pop or rock oriented, I think those synergize extremely well. And that was the goal, or that is the goal behind the MEMS duo, is taking years and years and years of my fairly strict classical training, but then putting it into a context that you would be hearing outside of a conservatory. Because the saxophone has the luxury of replicating the human voice pretty well. So it's sort of the melodic or lyrical voice in the MEMS duo, even though there's actual voice. Turner, the other part of the duo, is doing all the voice or the vocalies. But saxophone also fits that bill really well too. And I think that it's such a malleable and flexible instrument in terms of how you approach it and what you're playing. And especially if your fundamentals are pretty well practiced and structured, I think that it can synergize very well, or sneak in really well. And then, who knows, maybe people will start liking saxophone a little bit more if they hear it in a popular setting. And then that could branch them into other genres: jazz, modern music, ambient, experimental stuff. Even a lot of electronic music has saxophone in it these days. And it's been cool to hear, even though it's, usually like, really loud and there's a lot of effects on it and auto tuning and stuff. It still sounds really cool. So yeah, they mix very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, by the way, you just released a new album with your duo, right?
Yeah, we did. We did. We released an album at the beginning of October called Music for Exploring. And you can find it at memsduo.com, MEMZ duo.com. And then, speaking of synergizing new music, we also released a remix album a month after that, because my buddy Turner and I were really into a lot of experimental music and electronic artists. And we realized that, at the end of an album, they'll have maybe 2 or 3 tracks where they've collaborated with other artists and they've remixed one of their tunes or a couple of their tunes. So we decided, why not do that and collaborate more? Because as classically trained musicians, or just musicians in general, collaboration is huge. It helps keep the ball rolling and keep people invested and interested. So we decided to collaborate with, I think it's a total of 12 musicians. And then they each took one of our tracks and took all the stems that we recorded and manipulated them in a certain way. So then we also released a compilation remix album too. So we have like trap, hip hop, some electronic ambient stuff, some experimental stuff, some rock and roll, some singer-songwriter like bedroom pop stuff. Someone did an a cappella version of one of the tunes. So I think it's been really cool to collaborate with other musicians as well, all across the US. It's been really, really fun.
Nice. So I have a question about your Syos mouthpiece.
Yes, I have it right here.
Oh yeah, show us. Nice.
With the best cap. I love this cap. I love the cap. It's my favorite part.
No. So what were you looking for in the mouthpiece that Syos was able to provide with your signature model?
The biggest thing is this sounds contradictory, but it's not. It's very, very, very intentional because I'm a very neurotic person. I mean, I'm a classical musician, so we're all a little bit neurotic. I wanted a mouthpiece that when you heard it, you couldn't hear it, if that makes any sense. Like, we spend so much time as saxophonists developing our sound, or I think rather we spend way too much time worrying about technique and how fast we can play and how high and fast we can play, that we lose track of fundamentals and the way we sound. And all too often, as saxophonists or as a teacher as well, I hear a lot of students that I can really hear their reed. I can hear how loose or how tight the ligature is sometimes. I can hear if their reed is pushed up too high, too low. And I can also hear, like, I don't know, too much stress in the embouchure. So I wanted a mouthpiece that just fit extremely well. I mean, specifically on my face, but hopefully on a lot of other people's faces, to where it just sounds like sound and you can't hear reediness, you can't hear buzziness, you can't hear any interference. I wanted a mouthpiece that was very easy to play. I know that this is a cliche, but I wanted it easy to play in all registers. And that's kind of like a really cheap selling point that you see on like every mouthpiece website. It's like improved playing in all these registers and all this stuff. But I can actually attest to that's the case with this mouthpiece because it's so free blowing, especially at the tip opening I like, which is a 5. I kind of selfishly wanted a mouthpiece that just did everything. And it kind of does. It's nice. I was telling you earlier that when I'm sustaining low B flats, it's so free blowing and so resonant that I'm getting the baritone sax glasses wobble, and it's really nice. It's really rich. And then playing up high, another saxophonist, Avery, was letting me know that the Altissimo fits really well. It slots really well. The margin for error is larger. And I didn't realize that until I was practicing that as well. So it did that. It kind of just, at least for me, it checked every box, or it checks every box. It's extremely in tune. I'm having to work less. So I'm having to relearn how not to work, especially in the mid-range, like Ds and Es and C sharps. So I was looking for everything in a mouthpiece, and I seemingly have gotten everything in a mouthpiece, and it's been really, really fun to get to know it even more.
Great, that's great news.
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay, I have a last question, and then you can we will start your masterclass. So I was wondering, how was life as a music teacher during the COVID time? And so what do? Do you mostly teach online, or can you still have class with people?
It's about 50-50 right now. So right now I'm at Marietta College where I do the bulk of my teaching, but then I'm also teaching lessons an hour away at Ohio University in Athens. So for those students, I'm doing online teaching. I have 6 students there, and we're just doing it online. So it's a little bit of a struggle that way, because ideally everyone would be able to have their lessons in like a sound treated room with acoustic paneling and perfect mics and like super, super crystal clear webcams so I can see their hands and what their embouchure is doing. So it's a little bit of a struggle that way too, because most people are just using their phones, which, do a lot of good and also a lot of bad things to audio. But I am able to have some lessons, some one-on-one saxophone lessons in person. We're using covers on the bell and filters on the bell. And then these masks, I have mine over there, which pulls over. It's almost like a balaclava, but it doesn't go over your head, and it stops here. But then there's a flap in the front to where you would lift up and then put your mouthpiece and neck in this way. But then there's also slots on the side for flute, because I was also teaching a woodwind methods class, and we're realizing, like, how do you play the flute with this thing? The saxophone's a little bit easier to play. It's been, I don't want to say it's been a struggle, because saying that teaching in the COVID era, saying it's a struggle, I think makes, at least for me, makes it sound like I'm being stubborn or I'm unwilling to change. So it hasn't been a struggle. It's just been very different. But your students come first, and however you need to work for your students, you work for your students. So I'm perfectly fine doing remote teaching, or the little bit of in-person teaching we're doing as well. Like I'm coaching a jazz combo here at Marietta as well, and that's like very spread out. We're about 6 to 10 feet away from each other, and we're like arranged in a very weird pattern, I guess, or instrument placement. But we're making it work okay, and I think that we're surprisingly making a little bit more progress, at least with my saxophone students, because I've been giving them like more patterns and scales to supplement the sight reading and duet playing we'd be doing in the beginning of our lessons and stuff. So it's been okay, all things considered.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. So yeah, you can. I will let you do your masterclass, and I will come back after for answering all the questions from the audience.
Great. Thank you, Pauline. And please cut me off if I'm talking too much.
Okay.
Please cut me off.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay, so I guess I'll get started. The biggest thing that most saxophonists don't have is a structured and standard warm-up routine. I think we're not as lucky as brass players to have Clark's books or Arbin's books that are, humongous volumes of just exercise 1, 2, 3, all the way through 5,000. I'm sure it's not 5,000. But one thing that I've been focusing on a lot in the last few years is developing a structured warm-up routine that can still be a little bit malleable. If I'm really needing to focus on, say, harmonic minor scales and thirds, then I maybe leave one part of my warm-up routine out, and then I implement that other part of I bring in the harmonics and thirds. If I'm working on, say, Aeolian Song by Benson, everybody's favorite piece with beautiful altissimo or lyrical altissimo playing, then maybe I work more on long tones in the altissimo register. But the biggest thing with a warm-up routine is it's not just to warm up. I'm sure we've all, put our instrument together and we've hooked up our reed, and we'll do the like, okay, all good. And then that's your warm-up routine, which to me is silly, because you're really not accomplishing anything. You're just, maybe just reminding yourself that you know how to make sound on your saxophone. But with a warm-up routine, it's multifaceted. You're warming up. You are contextualizing a bunch of stuff like scale patterns and stuff that you can then transfer over to your rep. Maybe you're working on scale patterns, different types of scale patterns. For me, when I warm up, I do a ton of Altissimo practicing as well, because Altissimo is that thing that sort of eludes most saxophonists. And the only reason why it eludes most saxophonists is because we don't really practice it. We practice it. We practice it uncontextualized. We'll only practice it when we put a piece of music down and understand, like the Muchinsky Sonata, first movement, up all the way up on the top of the second page. I think we'll practice it then, but we'll just practice it way too fast, and we don't take time to slow down. And another reason why I like a warm-up routine so much is because whether you're a student, whether you're an educator, whether you are a hobbyist, whether you're just playing on weekends, life, especially now, life moves pretty fast, and life is continuing to sort of do the Tasmanian devil thing, where it's spinning around and you see an arm stick out, or like a pop can or something comes flying out. But when we're warming up, at least for me, it's a way to center myself and reach the kind of sort of saxophone Zen state where you can be thorough and be thoughtful and be present in your practicing and start targeting things that you know are issues, but you can work on those things while you're warming up. So with all these exercises, I made a PDF, and with all of these exercises, they're designed to solve a lot of issues at once, hopefully. I wrote these down. I don't think that, they're really not anything super special or groundbreaking. The biggest thing for me is that I wrote it at the top, I think, is be present, thoughtful, and thorough. Like your phone is away. You are in a good headspace. Maybe you've done some breathing beforehand, whatever you do to sort of get yourself in the zone to practice. Your music is away. If you want to use this PDF, I could probably put this PDF on my website for free, jordantaylorreed.com. Or if you want a copy, send me an email, jordantaylorreed@gmail.com, and I'll just email you a copy of it. But just making sure that you're really thorough and you're kind of hypercritical when you're playing this stuff. I'm going to bring this up here on my screen, and I hope it doesn't. Oh, I can kind of see it here. Thank you, Pauline. So first things first, when I set up my horn, before I play, and I'm going to try my best to remember to push the mic away and pull the mic up when I'm playing, because I'm not awesome at audio stuff. Oh, thanks, Pauline. So the first thing I do is I will physically warm up the horn, literally warm up the horn. If you have your saxophones with you, if you want to play along, you can. I would encourage it. I finger a low B flat. Well, first I make sure that everything's looking okay up here. I make sure my mouthpiece is dark blue. And then I finger a low B flat, and I'll just put a bunch of air through the horn. I'm not sure if you can hear it, if it's loud enough, but I'll try to sustain that for a while. So I'll just go through the motions. What I'm doing is a little bit abbreviated because, we have time constraints. But in a perfect world, I would probably be doing this first exercise for maybe about 3 minutes, give or take. So I'll take a good breath in. I'll set my embouchure where I want it, remembering that the embouchure starts at the very top of your head. You're resting your teeth on first and then everything else, so you're not creating any pressure down here. And then I'll just put a bunch of air through the horn. Then I'll do it one more time. And then if you haven't done it before, you can feel your neck. You can feel that your neck is warmer. It's literally warming up, covering all the holes, gets air moving this way more. It doesn't just escape out of the first open hole. It could do a little bit. It could not do a lot. I just like to do it. And then this is where I start warming up. And, this isn't one of those things where I made these exercises and I don't do them. I literally do all this stuff, if not way more. This is exactly how I do it. And I focus a lot on it. because fundamentals are very important. If you can't play slow and thoughtful and connected and have good sound, then it really makes no sense to start working on Denisov or a Barrio sequenza or something else. Slow and thoughtful, slow first. So what I'll do, and if I didn't write this down, all of these are designed to be fairly loud, putting good air through the horn. Air is also huge. So I'll just play this descending B flat major scale. I always start on B flat because I'm neurotic and also it works, or it's helpful to start low and get the whole horn vibrating. I'll play the slow and slurred, and then you'll see at the very end, there's a little crescendo at the end of each of these pitches. I like doing this. It's what some people refer to them as hot releases. I was fortunate enough to work with David Maslanka for a little bit. Not me personally. He came to where I was studying, and he was talking about releasing this way, releasing with a crescendo. So you can call it a hot release or a Maslanka release, and it's something that I really value. This way, you know that you're using all of your reserves, and maybe you're building up more reserves, because if you're sustaining these low B flats or these low notes for as long as you can, if you're able to push a little bit more at the very end, then maybe you're able to have better control over your air, or at least be a little bit more in tune with what your lungs are doing. So I'll play this exactly like how I would play it, just the B flat one. Then I'll do it again. And then you repeat this process going through each of these scales. Say you're working a ton on, again, harmonic minors or something, then you can easily supplement a harmonic minor in here, a melodic minor in here. If for some reason you're doing a bunch of Lydian stuff, who knows? The nice thing about these exercises is that I stole the pattern stuff, because we tend to associate playing patterns with jazz musicians, but why are we always so floored with the incredible technique of all these jazz musicians? Is because they're playing patterns, and they're working on cognitive flexibility, and they're gaining more facility and more mastery over their instrument because they're playing patterns so much. So, it's not like only jazz musicians are allowed to play patterns. Take them, steal them, use them, put them into your classical playing. That's what I do. So that's the first one. Sustain as long as possible, crescendo towards the end. I like to do this. I think I wrote it. Yeah, B flat to D. Then if you want to work your way back down, you can. And go through each of those a couple times, or until you feel like the horn is speaking well and you're getting a good sound and you're sounding the way you want. The next pattern is probably the thing that I hold the closest, the thing I work on the most. And it's nice because it's a seemingly simple little exercise, but there's so much value in it, and they're so malleable. So when I like to play, or when I'm warming up and I'm playing scales, I do them chromatically. I don't go around the circle of fourths or the circle of fifths. If you want to go around the circle of fourths or fifths, just make sure that there's good intention why. I know a lot of play-alongs online if you are working on jazz, or even if you're borrowing the play-alongs and working on your scales classically. I know a lot of them go around the fourths and fifths, but I like to go chromatically, because you're playing C major 1 second, you're playing C sharp the next, you're playing D, then you're playing B. So you're working on more muscle confusion, or I think I wrote on here cognitive flexibility. I'm going to open up this thing. I don't think it'll take away my screen. Okay, so there are 4 different patterns, and this is good for scale memorization and also cognitive flexibility. So with cognitive flexibility, it's just being able to switch quick, think on your feet, muscle confusion, etc. So there are 4 directions when you're working on scales or chromatic patterns. This one I wrote is down up. This is the way I usually start. Down refers to one scale, up refers to the next scale, and then you repeat that pattern. So you're going down B flat major, up B major, down C major, up C sharp or D flat. And if there are any weird accidental things in here, I was using Muse score for the first time, and I don't know how to use it. So just bear with me. But then there's also down, down. So you would descend B flat major, then descend B major, then descend C, then C sharp. There's up, up, which you'd ascend, 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 ascend the whole way. And then there's also up, down, ascend B flat, descend B major, etc. So this pattern, I like to go slow. There's no reason to go fast, especially when you're starting to play. If you get in the practice room right away and you're warming up and all you're doing is playing super fast, you're not really warming up. Again, we're trying to, or at least I try to enter the Zen state, or just being present and really, really listening to my horn and really feeling what my body is doing, what my mouth is doing, what the weather is doing, etc. So here's this pattern. I'll go up one octave, or one B flat all the way to B flat. Also, if you're working on circular breathing, that's a good exercise to do. Everything is slurred. You're pushing into your different tonics. And then coming down is the exact same thing. You're just working backwards. That's that exercise. I know that a lot of my students, I won't say their names, but I will vaguely put them on blast. They wait until they need to play their scales for some sort of a grade to actually play their scales. And I think, why? Because all you're doing is creating more stress for yourself. You're self-sabotaging. So if you're able to get out your scale practice while you're warming up, while you're working on cognitive flexibility, while you're working on good air, while you're working on memorization, then that's how many birds with one stone? 4, 5, 6. It's a multifaceted thing. And just really quick, I'll go through briefly the other patterns. So that's down, up. Here's up, down. And then down, down. And I am not reattacking the top notes. I'm just pushing my air. I'm springboarding off of low or springboarding off of high to push in. It's all air, all air. And then what I just do, down, down. Here's up, up. This one can be tricky from going, up, then all the way back down. So just push your air. Your goal right now is not to sound super pretty. If you haven't done this before, your goal is just to get the note out, and then you can refine from there. So here's up, up. So again, I'm not sure how great the microphone is doing. It's probably clipping a little bit. I hope not, but it probably is. I'm just playing loud because we also tend to play too quiet, and then we wonder, why aren't certain notes coming out, especially when you're crossing the break. We get the weird nether region. But it's just because you're not using your air efficiently. So when you're working on these large interval leaps, it probably is the most apparent when you're doing the same direction, either down, down, or up, up. When you're working on these large interval leaps, you need to push your air more than you think. Again, you can refine later and make it sound better later. So first, just work on actually achieving your goal and actually getting it out. The nice thing about these chromatic patterns, I abbreviated a little bit on the bottom, is you can also change your actual scale pattern if you need to. So if you're working on thirds, like I know a lot of my students are, you can do this in thirds. So I know I have B flat. I'll just start on D. So here is up down in thirds, an up down chromatic pattern with major scales in thirds. And then you can do any pattern that you want. Down, down as well. And then up, up, and then down, up. Any of those work. You can also switch them. Say you want to do just standard up and downs without doing thirds. You can do harmonic minor. I'm actually really happy that I got D sharp harmonic minor because I was worried about it. And then you can also do harmonic minor in thirds. You can also switch these up if you really, really, really want to work on cognitive flexibility. You can do alternating scale types. You can do down major, up harmonic minor, for instance. Let's see, I've kind of what if'd myself into a hole, but I'll do down, up, down major, up harmonic minor. So that one's hard. But you can do that one as well. You can use all these patterns, any types of scales, whole tone, diminished. I do this one a lot. I probably use major a lot just to get my fingers moving. But there have been times where I've just done harmonic minor, or I've done harmonic minor in thirds, up and down, and whatever else. I love this pattern. I love it. I love it so much. Just don't go fast. You don't need to go fast. Go slow. The next one. So your horns officially all warmed up. Well, maybe, sort of. And then now the next big part of your warm-up routine is beginning to contextualize and actually practice altissimo. This is something that I take very seriously because we're always so concerned about our altissimo playing. We're always really nervous about it, especially as classical musicians, because we hear jazz musicians going for it and they're moving their embouchure all over the place, but it's nice to hear it and it's nice to see it because it creates more personality and like an original characteristic to their sound. But for classical players, you know, we're taught from a young age, or whenever you begin your study, you're taught to don't move your embouchure, don't bite, don't do anything. It's all voicing, it's all your tongue, it's all your air, which is true. I like to focus on not moving anything. So I know a lot of people like to do long tones. And I think that there's value in long tones, but then you could also make your long tone exercise multifaceted by doing overtones. So overtones aren't anything new at all, but maybe the new element that we're incorporating here is just being thoughtful and playing them slow. So how I've written it here, low and slow overtones, intro to clean altissimo, is you're always fingering your low B flat, you're fingering your low fundamental, and then from there you're trying to achieve the pitch on top. So you'll play B flat for 3. I didn't write a tempo marking because it was just getting too cluttered, but just do these slow. around here. And then while fingering your low B flat, you're going to get the first octave, then you break, then you want to get the fifth, and then you break, and then the second octave, and then you work your way back down. Again, it's not just playing the bugle call super fast, bum bum be lump, doing the overtone showy offy thing. Your goal here is to play slow and try to take a photo of what exactly the inside of your mouth is doing, how you're able to achieve the fifth easier than the octave, why the second octave is always eluding you and it's always out of reach, and then working slowly and whittling away. Again, I think I use the analogy whittling away or polishing things later, slowly, because what we do is a work in progress. And if you don't give yourself permission to learn, then you're going to get super frustrated, and you're going to have one of those practice sessions or a series of practice sessions where you're going to throw your saxophone off a balcony, or pay somebody with a steamroller to drive over it and then show up to your lesson and be like, oh yeah, I don't know what happened. It's just totally flat and someone crushed it. So don't. So allow yourselves to learn, give yourselves permission to learn and to not sound good for a little while, especially if you haven't done overtone stuff before, because I don't think it's super easy to do. I think getting the first octave especially is difficult. So I'll try this exercise on B. And my goal here is not just to achieve the pitch above the fundamental, but it's to try to make it sound as clean and warm as possible. So here's the B flat one, hopefully. So, it worked okay. If I were actually practicing, I would go through this 2 more times, 3 more times. I think the nice thing about this masterclass as well is that I'm actually warming up with you. And if you always sound good when you're warming up, then move on to a new warm-up routine. It's okay to frack notes. It's okay to mess up. If you're going to give yourselves permission to learn, you also have to give yourselves permission to accept the fact that we are not robots. And always seeing everything on Instagram or Facebook or wherever. Do people even still use Facebook? I do a little bit. Seeing everything on there, it's curated, it's polished. It's if I'm ever posting a video on there, unless the intention is to show progress, it's to show the progress that I've made off camera, or I'm proving a point, or I'm showing excerpts played on this mouthpiece. Everything is curated a little bit, whether it looks that way or not. It's like buying a $65 t-shirt that looks all ripped up to make it look like you've bought a $2 t-shirt. It's everyone's tricking everybody all the time. But if you're realizing that you're messing up a little bit and you're warming up, then that means that you need to focus on that warm up and target it and isolate it and live in the pain cave for a little bit while you learn or try to achieve mastery over that exercise. Okay, so say we've just run through all of those. You've done B flat. I think I stopped at C. You can do C sharp. I don't go up to D on this one, mainly because it's too hard and it's I can't do it. But just B flat all the way to C sharp or D flat is perfectly fine. Ideally, whenever you work up, then you work back down as well. So you complete the circle. You're not drawing a half circle. You're always going all the way around. So now when it comes to practicing how to contextualize Altissimo, we go into this exercise. We start slow. Let me make sure my read's okay. That's okay. So when we practice this one, we want to go slow. And these are just very, very, very slow and simple chromatic passages starting on D. And then we go up chromatically. And whenever you're given the opportunity to use front, starting on E, use front. Because if you can get an E out, that's an altissimo pitch. It's a false fingering, and you're able to get it. I know a lot of people's E's sound really muffled and stuffy. Check, to make sure that your keys are opening up wide enough or large enough, but also just use more air. Altissimo, if you want good altissimo faster, approach it like it's not delicate and it's not going to break easily. Just go for it. Use more air. I've had so much more success in my own personal playing, and then also with students who are just pushing air into the altissimo register. As of last week, I've had 3 students they're contextualizing some high Gs in the first movement of the Creston Sonata. There are some high Bs, Cs, C sharps, and Ds in Phoenix by Rio Noda. Having more success there. And then also in a Bach transcription. Sorry, everybody, but I stole Bach only because there are nice lines. And then also some Kohler etudes for flute. But I've had more success, or the students have had more success, rather, when they stop worrying about if the note's going to speak or not, and they rely on the voicing that they've been learning how to do playing saxophone anyways, because the voicing up high is similar. When you're doing palm to front, your tongue's just a little bit higher. So just relying on the fundamentals and the foundation you've already built up as a player and using them to altissimo, because we either bite too much when we're learning altissimo or we do not use enough air. So just use air. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to squeak. Doesn't matter. Then you assess the situation and then you try it again. Slow and thoughtful and present. So now this exercise, this is how this one would sound. I'm on line 48. Super slow and loud chromatic altissimo long tones. And your goal is to sustain your high notes as loud as you can. Here's the next one. So ideally, you would sustain that one longer. And then the next one. And I think I wrote on there, go all the way to D. So you start on A. You go up that high, but much slower and louder than what I just did. And then after you do those, after you work up high, and then you work your way back down to where we started. So starting pitch of D, starting pitch of A, going up to D, then starting pitch of D, back at 48. Then you would play some 2-octave scales. And I start these on F, again, because front F is an altissimo pitch, whether you know it or not. This is an altissimo pitch, and it's relatively easy to get out. But I'll do a 2-octave scale, and then I'll sustain. Again, you always go up and sustain unless you're playing the next exercise. So here's that one. For a while, F sharp. Specifically for F sharp, I would highly recommend that everyone does the F sharp that everyone hates. High F key, 2, and side B flat. The one that's more resistant and that takes more work from these two. Because one of them sounds better, it's a little bit flatter. One of them sounds bad at first and it's a little bit sharper. But if you can make that F sharp, again, F2 and side B flat, if you can make that F sharp sound good and sound clean, then you're well on your way. And then from there, we do G. And I'm looking at the PDF and I realize I forgot to put B flats on F major. So if you want to do F Lydian, you can. Whatever, do whatever you want. And then we'll do G. Your goal, again, to sustain, to make it pretty and see how long you can go without getting the, or just a pure G for a long time. And also on that one, I would highly recommend you go to the G that everyone hates, front G. That one is difficult, but I feel like if we're thinking about contextualizing and going up and going back down, it's the G that works the best. Because if you're trying to go to all these other G fingerings, like this one, this really silly one with 1 and 3 and 4, and then side B flat. Working your way back down doesn't necessarily work that well. We might have lost the PDF, but I'm going to keep going just in case we haven't, because it looks like it's lost for me. But I'll just keep going. Oh, it's back. Okay, great. So then the next one, the treacherous one, is doing chromatic patterns, but doing them up high. On this, I forgot to write down 8 VA because I finished this part about an hour ago. So bear with me, but just know that these ones start an octave up. And again, these are slow and thorough and thoughtful. And if you're noticing that you're messing up between, say, G sharp or A flat and A, or A flat and then G, working your way back down, then you zoom into those two pitches and you target it. You target what you can't do well, and then you contextualize a little before, a little after, and then even farther. And then maybe you do the whole exercise. So here's that one slow. And then from there, you would go up and up and up and up. I always stop around high D because I don't know. Sure, it's fun to play super high, but spoiler, playing an A is super high. There's no need. I don't think there's any need, at least for me. That might be a lukewarm or a hot take, but there's really no need to go up to high D sharp or E flat. I think it's silly. So then once you've done those, you can do those slower. You can do those faster. Again, with those, you can do, harmonic minors as well. Like maybe. I don't know. Oh, I didn't push the microphone away, so sorry if that was awful. If we lost any people during that exercise, I'm so sorry, sincerely. Okay, the next exercise, there are more that you can do here, but one exercise that I like to do, spread arpeggios and really wide arpeggios, because I feel like everything that we've been doing so far, you're getting progressively higher and higher and higher. So your voicing is having to change little by little by little. But if you're able to get your voicing to change even quicker and faster, and it's a little bit more abrupt and higher to lower, and the intervals are larger, then you are achieving more mastery or just getting better at your altissimo stuff. Let's see. I moved my reed around. Okay, so for this one, this is just some arbitrary little exercise, but I like it because it sounds cool. At least to me, I think it does. So they're roughly kind of sort of C7 and then C major. Or you could just say they're in B flat major, but without the third and without the seventh. And then B Locrian or something, or even C major just starting on 7. It is C major, but whatever you want. I don't care. But these are just a collection of pitches that I like. And again, these are low and slow. And what's nice about these is that I'm sure we've all been there and we've been practicing and we've gotten altissimo fatigue or like altissimo mouth, where we're playing super high all the time. We're working on a bunch of stuff or whatever we're playing. But then you play that more and more and more and more, or for longer and longer, and then you get altissimo mouth. So every time you try to play even like a side E flat, you're just playing nothing but high notes, or you're fracking middle Ds and stuff, play low. Just play low and reset your embouchure. And what's nice about this exercise is it almost eliminates getting altissimo mouth. I'm sure there's a more gooder or a more smarter term for it, but right now I'll just call it altissimo mouth, because I don't like big words because they freak me out. So these are the wide altissimo arpeggios, kind of sort of C7 and C major. Again, these are all slurred. If you want to tongue them for another type of exercise, you can, but I don't. So I'll just approximate what those are and what those sound like. It's weird to look at them because these usually aren't written down. And then the next one, you're just going to B, because then you're going from your front G, instead of going to B flat here, which is the B flat I like, then you're going all the way over here. So you're voicing a little bit higher, and you're working on finger flexibility up in the high register as well. So here's the other one, the C major roughly one. And then you could, continue to alter some of these pitches. Say you want to do the first one, and you want to put F sharp in there, because say you're able to get out F to G pretty easily. But F sharp to G is tongue twistery for you. F sharp to G for some reason is eluding you somehow. I don't know why. It happens to me as well. So then why not incorporate that into this one? It's really small for me, so I'll just see if I can. Or why not change the G to an A flat and mess around that way? Why not? Sure. I mean, the reason why those sound the way they sound is because I've never worked on it before, but it would be fun to start incorporating all that stuff into your playing and achieve saxophone Zen state and really dig into your fundamentals, and then take it all to your actual rep and start incorporating it that way. And then you're going to notice, if you spend a lot of time, even if you were to take one of your practice sessions a week and dedicate an hour to 2 hours just to warming up or just to stuff on this page, your playing is going to improve significantly. So I guess that's it. I guess that's what I have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was really interesting.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Pauline.
Yeah, so we have a few questions from the audience. So we have a question from John. He said that I've collected about 6 tenor altissimo fingerings per note. Many are key combinations that are new to me. Any suggestion on how to select fingerings that will work in most melodic situations?
Wow, what a great question. I think about this a lot. And, well, specifically, I don't think about 6 fingerings per pitch. So congratulations to you for doing all of your research and homework. For me, I like to use the fingerings that, if they meet 2 criteria, if they fit the best contextually in the piece. So I'll use different G fingerings, for instance. That's basically the only fingering I really use different fingerings for. But if it fits contextually and if it sounds the most open and it sounds the most, I guess, idiomatic, or it fits the rest of the timbre of the instrument as well. I mean, if you're playing jazz saxophone, then, timbre, make every single note sound different if you can. But for classical playing specifically, whatever fits the best contextually and whatever sounds the best, as long as you're having to do less work, because there's already so much work going on anyways up here, and if you're performing and whatever else. However, whatever fingerings make you work less but then sound the best, I would use those.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Patterns 2020. He asked if you can show the equipment for teaching in person during coronavirus. Do you have it here, or?
I do, yeah. One sec.
Okay.
So this is the mask. I can demonstrate it too if you want. So it looks like this, kind of like a balaclava. And what you do, why not? Fashion show. You slide it on over your head. So like this. And then there's a little spot to rest on your chin right here. And then you'll pull it over. And then you'll tie it behind your head. And you can use any knot that you want. It's really great. You can tie it however you want. Bunny ears, loop, swoop, and pull. Doesn't matter. And then right here, this looks so cool. Right here is where you put your saxophone. Right here is where you'd slide your flute. And it does okay. That's it.
Wow, the first time that I see something like that.
That's it. That's what we use.
Okay. That's yeah, that's something.
It's something. You're absolutely right. It's something.
Okay. I have one question. Syos isn't really popular among classical players. I wanted to know if you had something to say about Syos to the classical players.
Yeah, I think that classical players are it's weird. It's kind of a catch-22 because classical players always want to do the next best thing and work on reps super fast and knock stuff out really fast, and try new things, but then they're also afraid of change unless they're told by a certain publication or a certain Instagram account or a certain professor or 2 or 3 or 4 when it's okay to change. Like everyone is kind of anxiously waiting for permission in a weird way. And everyone's waiting to see, okay, at this conference, I'm noticing the top 10 classical players in our field, they're using this technology. So now it must be okay for me to use it. And I think that that's really going to get us nowhere fast, or at least it's at least going to slow down forward thinking. And we're going to be, we always want to be non-traditional instrumentation or instruments, and we want to be forward thinking individuals, but we worry too much about when it's okay or not okay to move forward with stuff. And I think, at least for me, I mean, like I'm 80%, 90% a classical player. I have experience with jazz. I've improvised a ton. A lot of the stuff we're doing for MEMS is purely improvised. It's not really it's non-genre specific. It's just improvising. But as a classical player, you see all these things happening in the jazz world of people using Syos mouthpieces, or people using new neck straps, new necks, new pads on their horn. All this new technology, but classical players, don't. And I don't really understand why. Like there's like two huge mouthpiece companies that exist right now, and people are really only sticking with those. But I don't mean to peek behind the curtains a little bit, but it's not just those two choices that we have. We have a lot of options available to us, and namely, we have a seemingly endless amount of options or possibilities available to us through Syos, especially because if you can think it up, you can 3D print it and you can see if it works. And that's what we did. I know that you had sent me 4 prototypes. I have a few of them back here. You sent me 4 prototypes, all with different chambers, all with different stuff. Like this one's pretty similar to the one that I'm using now. It's a little bit different, but I just went through and tried stuff because why not? Why do I want to wait to be told when it's okay or not okay to try new things classically? I think classical musicians are also really scared of looking silly and messing up in front of people. And I really don't understand why, because we're not robots, we're humans. Let's experiment. And also, like, music is very fun. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. And a lot of people don't realize that anymore because they're stuck in the practice room, comparing themselves to others, watching Instagram feeds, trying to find the most expensive piece of tech they can. But I can almost guarantee you that any piece of tech that you buy, and I mean, I have some on my horn, some of the ones that everyone has, some of the pieces of tech you buy aren't going to do anything for your sound, but your mouthpiece is going to do a ton for your sound. So why not experiment and try new things? And the worst that's going to happen is that you kind of like it better than something else, or you don't like it as much. I just think that life is too short to not try stuff out, and saxophonists are too weird not to want to try stuff out. And when I see saxophonists, classical musicians especially, when I see classical saxophonists not wanting to try new stuff, it's very weird because I feel like saxophonists are really open to trying new things and are very weird people in general. So it's a little bit weird to me that they don't want to try this stuff. And I say, just try it, go for it.
Yeah, especially because with Syos, we have a 30 days trial policy. So if you don't like the mouthpiece, you can send it back and get a refund.
Exactly. And I can say this from experience that Syos and you especially are the easiest people to work with. Like, you don't have to make an appointment to go to a shop and try out all these different mouthpieces. And especially now during COVID, getting some mouthpieces or buying a few mouthpieces and testing them out and getting them shipped to you and then shipping them back, it's actually very safe to do. And it's actually very smart to do. So yeah, you have 30 days to try out a mouthpiece, which is a pretty cool luxury to have.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jordan, for being here, for the nice masterclass. We learned a lot, and
you bet.
Yeah, and yeah, see you sometimes around, and yeah, thank you for. I hope you can come to France at some point. But
me too.
Yeah.
I want to come to France, and I want to drink a lot of good wine and eat a lot of good bread and cheese and play saxophone.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, we can do a raclette when you come.
That would be great. That would be great. Yeah, I'll be there one of these days. I'll be out there.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you all the people that came to the live too, and have a great day. Yeah, bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.